What if the only thing standing between you and your dream life was consistency? In this audiobook, uncover the secret to unshakable discipline, effortless follow-through, and unstoppable momentum. No more starting and stopping. This time, you finish what you start. For good. Introduction. Imagine for a moment that you had a superpower, one that allowed you to achieve anything you set your mind to, no matter how difficult, overwhelming, or impossible it seemed at first. A power that eliminated hesitation, silenced doubt, and propelled you forward day after day even when motivation disappeared and obstacles appeared at every turn. Now, what if I told you that you already have access to this superpower? It's not intelligence. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not some secret technique known only to high achievers. It's consistency. Most people fail, not because they lack ability, passion, or ambition, but because they lack consistency. They start strong, filled with energy and excitement, only to lose momentum the moment things get tough. They set goals, make plans, and promise themselves they'll change, but when life gets in the way, they slip back into old habits. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and before they know it, they're in the same place they started, frustrated, and wondering why nothing ever seems to change. This book exists to end that cycle. If you've ever struggled with staying consistent, if you've ever felt like you know exactly what you need to do, yet somehow you just can't get yourself to do it day after day, this book will change everything for you. You'll discover that consistency isn't about willpower, motivation, or even discipline alone. It's about systems, identity, and mindset. It's about becoming the type of person who takes action automatically, without hesitation, without negotiation, and without the constant battle of, should I do it or not? By the time you finish this book, you won't just understand the power of consistency. You'll become the person who embodies it. Consistency is not perfection, it's persistence. Before we go any further, let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions about consistency. It does not mean doing things perfectly every single day. It does not mean never missing a workout, never skipping a task, or never making a mistake. That's perfectionism, and it's one of the fastest ways to burn out and fail. True consistency is about persistence, not perfection. It's about showing up more often than not. It's about staying committed over the long run, even when life gets chaotic. It's about learning to bounce back quickly instead of letting one bad day spiral into a bad week, month, or year. Think about it like this. If a pilot flying from New York to Los Angeles gets slightly off course, does the flight get canceled? The pilot adjusts. The same applies to consistency. The key is not avoiding missteps. It's knowing how to course correct and keep moving forward. Most people think success is about giant leaps, breakthrough moments, and overnight transformations. But in reality, it's the small, repeated actions, done consistently over time, that create the biggest results. This is true for your fitness, career, finances, relationships, and every area of your life. The problem? Most people never stick with something long enough to see those results. Why? Because there's a gap between intention and execution. The gap between intention and execution. We've all been there. You set a goal, and in that moment, you're fully committed. Maybe you decide to start waking up early, read more books, eat healthier, or finally stick to that workout routine. You're motivated, inspired, and ready to change. But then, something happens. Maybe you're exhausted one morning and hit snooze instead of getting up early. Maybe you have a stressful day and decide to skip the gym just this once. Maybe you plan to read before bed, but scrolling your phone seems easier. One missed day turns into 2, then 3, and before you know it, you're back to your old habits, feeling guilty and frustrated. Why does this happen? Because intention alone isn't enough. Motivation fades, energy fluctuates, life gets in the way. And unless you have a system in place that makes execution automatic, you will always struggle with consistency. This book will teach you how to bridge that gap. You'll learn how to create routines and systems that remove decision fatigue, so you don't have to rely on willpower. You'll discover how to shift your identity so that consistency becomes part of who you are, not just something you try to do. And you'll gain the tools to make consistency feel effortless, even when you don't feel like it. What you'll learn in this book, this isn't just another book about habits. It's not about forcing yourself to be more disciplined or relying on motivation to keep you going. Instead, it's a blueprint for becoming the kind of person who is unshakably consistent no matter what. Here's what you can expect. 1. The psychology of consistency. Why most people struggle to stay consistent and how to fix it. The hidden beliefs that are sabotaging your follow-through. How to rewire your brain so that taking action becomes automatic. 2. Identity-based consistency. The difference between acting consistent and being consistent. Why your self-image controls your habits and how to change it. The power of small wins and how they shape your long-term behavior. 3. The systems that make consistency easy. How to eliminate decision fatigue and make execution effortless. The never miss twice rule that keeps you on track. How to design an environment that naturally pulls you toward action. 4. Overcoming resistance and setbacks. What to do when motivation disappears. How to get back on track after missing a day without guilt. The secret to long-term success. How to make consistency feel rewarding. This is not about working harder. It's about working smarter. It's about setting yourself up for success so that consistency happens naturally without force or struggle. Right now, you have 2 choices. You can keep doing what you've always done, starting and stopping, struggling with inconsistency, wondering why you can't seem to follow through. Or you can make a decision. You can commit, not just to reading this book, but to implementing what you learn, to becoming the person who follows through, the person who doesn't wait for motivation, doesn't make excuses, and doesn't quit when things get tough, the person who shows up day after day, week after week, until success becomes inevitable. This book will show you exactly how to make that happen. But reading alone isn't enough. You have to take action. You have to apply what you learn. You have to start right now, because consistency isn't just something you do. It's who you become. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The hidden truth about success. No one talks about. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to achieve success effortlessly, while others struggle despite having the same resources, opportunities, and even talent, you're about to uncover a truth that most people refuse to accept. It has nothing to do with intelligence, luck, or natural ability. It's not about working the hardest or even being the most creative. The defining factor that determines whether you become the person you aspire to be or remain stuck in the cycle of frustration and self-doubt comes down to one thing: your ability to show up consistently, regardless of how you feel, regardless of how uninspired you are, and regardless of whether you see results immediately or not. This is the secret that separates the ultra-successful from the perpetually stuck. This is what makes the difference between an athlete who becomes a world champion and one who quits after a few years of training. This is what determines whether a writer becomes a best-selling author or someone who forever dreams of writing a book but never does. Yet, consistency is the most underrated and ignored factor in success. Why? Because it's not sexy. It doesn't offer instant gratification. It doesn't provide the dopamine rush that comes with starting something new or the thrill of sudden breakthroughs. Instead, it's repetitive, unglamorous, and at times, painfully boring. Society glorifies the idea of overnight success, viral moments, and dramatic transformations, making us believe that those who achieve greatness are somehow different from us, that they possess a magical quality that makes success inevitable for them. But that is an illusion. The truth is, behind every overnight success story is years of invisible, unrelenting, consistent effort. The kind of effort that is never seen, never celebrated, and often never appreciated. Think about it. You see a musician sell out stadiums, but what you don't see are the thousands of hours they spent practicing alone, the performances they did in empty bars, the nights they stayed awake refining their craft. You admire the best-selling author, but what you don't witness are the hundreds of rejected manuscripts, the mornings they forced themselves to write, even when the words felt forced, the years they spent perfecting their storytelling. You idolize the successful entrepreneur, but ignore the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, and the sheer number of failures they endured before they built something meaningful. The pattern is the same across every field. The world rewards those who show up, not those who get it perfect on the first try. The biggest lie people tell themselves is that success comes from bursts of inspiration and intense effort over a short period of time. You've probably done this yourself, deciding to get in shape and working out intensely for 2 weeks, then quitting when you don't see immediate results. Or committing to a new business idea and going all in for a few months, only to give up when growth is slower than expected. This cycle repeats itself over and over because you're relying on motivation to carry you forward instead of discipline. And here's the problem with motivation. It's unreliable. It fluctuates based on your mood, your energy levels, your circumstances. But consistency? That's bulletproof. Consistency doesn't ask you how you feel. It demands that you show up, regardless of your emotions. The people who master consistency don't rely on feeling inspired to take action. They take action regardless, and inspiration follows. This is the mindset shift that will change everything for you. If you only work on your goals when you feel like it, you will never get anywhere because feelings are fleeting. But if you commit to showing up every single day, even if it's only at 50% capacity, you will make progress. And progress, no matter how slow, always compounds over time. The reason most people fail isn't because they lack the ability to succeed. It's because they give up too soon. They look at their efforts in the short term, expecting immediate gratification, and when they don't see instant results, they assume their efforts are wasted. But success is never linear. It's the result of stacking small, seemingly insignificant actions on top of each other until they create unstoppable momentum. Imagine someone trying to cut down a massive tree. They swing the axe once, twice, 10 times, and nothing happens. If they quit there, they'll assume the tree is impossible to cut down. But if they keep swinging, again and again, the impact accumulates, and eventually, the tree falls. The problem is, most people stop swinging long before that moment of breakthrough. This is why consistency is more valuable than talent, intelligence, or even hard work in short bursts. It's not about how much effort you put in one day. It's about how often you put in effort, even when no one is watching, even when progress feels invisible. Because here's the truth. Your success is a lagging measure of your consistency. The shape of your body today is a reflection of how consistently you've trained and eaten over the last 6 months. The quality of your relationships is a reflection of how consistently you've nurtured them. The state of your finances is a reflection of how consistently you've made smart financial decisions. Consistency is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. But most people never cross it because they get tired of walking before they see the other side. If you take one thing away from this chapter, let it be this. Mastering consistency means mastering life. When you become the type of person who follows through no matter what, everything changes. You stop relying on willpower and start relying on identity. You no longer say, "I'll try to be disciplined." Instead, you say, "I am disciplined." You no longer say, I want to be a writer. You say, I write every day. When you internalize consistency as a core part of your identity, you remove the internal debate of whether you feel like doing something or not. It becomes automatic, non-negotiable, just like brushing your teeth or eating dinner. The problem is, most people wait for external validation to confirm their identity. They wait until they have a six-pack to believe they're fit. They wait until they've made money to believe they're an entrepreneur. But identity works in reverse. You must act like the person you want to become before you have proof of success. You must show up like a disciplined person before the world recognizes you as one. And that starts with consistency. The most successful people in the world aren't the smartest, the strongest, or the most naturally talented. They're the ones who simply refuse to quit. The ones who wake up every day and do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. The ones who understand that long-term success isn't built in days, weeks, or even months. It's built in years of sustained effort. And once you truly embrace this, you become unstoppable. That is the hidden truth about success that no one talks about. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can start applying it in your own life. Because here's the reality. You don't have to be the best to win. You just have to outlast everyone else. Chapter 2. The Silent Killer of Potential and How to Escape It. It's easy to believe that greatness belongs to a chosen few, that only the exceptionally talented, the outrageously lucky, or the obsessively disciplined make it to the top. But if that were true, how do we explain the thousands of people who had all the intelligence, potential, and opportunity in the world, but still ended up living far below their potential? If success were only about talent, then why do so many brilliant minds remain stuck, watching others, sometimes less gifted than them, achieve everything they once dreamed of? There's a reason for this. It's not intelligence, it's not opportunity, and it's certainly not luck. It's inconsistency. Inconsistency is the silent killer of potential. It's what separates those who build extraordinary lives from those who spend their years stuck in cycles of frustration, starting and stopping, trying and failing, hoping, but never fully committing. And the worst part? Most people don't even realize they're sabotaging themselves. They believe they're just unmotivated or that they lack willpower. But in reality, their problem isn't motivation at all. It's their relationship with consistency. They think consistency is optional. They think it's something you do when you feel like it, instead of what it actually is, the foundation of every single success story in existence. The difference between winners and those who never quite make it isn't some elusive secret. It's simple. Winners keep going when everyone else stops. That's it. That's the formula. They don't stop when they get bored. They don't stop when progress is slow. They don't stop when it gets uncomfortable, when no one is watching, or when there's no immediate reward. They show up day after day because they understand that success is a game of endurance. It's not about who can work the hardest for a few weeks. It's about who can outlast everyone else. But here's the problem. Most people are addicted to short-term gratification. They expect to see results instantly, and when they don't, they quit. They go on a diet for 2 weeks, don't see a six-pack, and decide it's not working. They start a new skill, struggle in the beginning, and assume they're just not good at it. They begin a business, face their first failure, and convince themselves they weren't meant for this. The reality? They never stayed in the game long enough to win. They never allowed themselves to push past the slow, frustrating, unglamorous middle where real transformation happens. Take a second and think about your own life. How many things have you started and stopped? How many times have you been excited about something? A new habit? A big goal? A dream you wanted so badly? Only to give up when the excitement faded? If you're like most people, the pattern is painfully familiar. You begin with fire, passion, and commitment. But then, after a few weeks or months, you hit resistance. You don't feel as excited anymore. Maybe progress is slower than expected, or maybe life just gets in the way. And so, slowly, without even realizing it, you start to miss a few days. Then a few more. And before you know it, something that once felt important to you is now nothing more than another unfinished project, another reminder that maybe you're just not as disciplined as you'd hoped. But what if I told you that this isn't your fault? That your problem isn't that you're lazy, unmotivated, or incapable. It's that no one ever taught you how to master consistency. See, society has conditioned you to think of success as something that happens in big leaps. You're taught to idolize the dramatic, the sudden, the seemingly miraculous transformations. The person who lost 100 pounds in 6 months. The entrepreneur who went from broke to millionaire in a year. The artist who blew up overnight. But what you don't see is the years of relentless consistency that happen behind the scenes. You don't see the mornings they forced themselves to get up and work when they didn't feel like it. You don't see the months, sometimes years, where nothing seemed to be happening, where they doubted themselves, where they felt like quitting, but didn't. And this is where people get it wrong. They look at these success stories and think, I need to work harder, push myself more, do everything at once. But that's not what separates successful people from the rest. It's not their intensity. It's their ability to sustain effort over time. It's their ability to keep going, even when the initial excitement wears off. Think about it. Anyone can go to the gym for a week and work out intensely. But can you keep going for 6 months? A year? 5 years? That's what actually makes the difference. The problem isn't starting, it's staying. And this is where most people fail. They push too hard, too fast, burn themselves out, and then quit. They set massive goals, try to change everything at once, and when they can't maintain it, they assume they're just not disciplined enough. But that's not the issue. The issue is that they've never learned how to make consistency effortless. So, how do you do it? How do you become the kind of person who follows through, not just for a few weeks, but for a lifetime? The answer lies in shifting your mindset. Instead of focusing on intensity, start focusing on longevity. Instead of trying to do everything at once, focus on showing up every single day, even if it's at 50% capacity. Consistency isn't about giving 100% effort all the time. It's about never letting your effort drop to zero. Here's an example. Let's say you want to get in shape. Most people will start by going to the gym 6 days a week, eating clean, and trying to overhaul their entire life overnight. But what happens? They burn out. They get overwhelmed, and within a few weeks, they're back to square one. But the people who succeed? They start small. They commit to just showing up even if it's for 10 minutes. They don't rely on motivation. They build routines that make it automatic. They don't worry about doing it perfectly. They just focus on never stopping. The truth is, you don't need more motivation. You don't need more inspiration. You need a system that keeps you consistent even when you don't feel like it. That's what separates the people who succeed from the ones who don't. They don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for the perfect time. They just show up, again and again until success becomes inevitable. So ask yourself, where in your life have you been inconsistent? What goals have you abandoned simply because you didn't see results fast enough? And more importantly, what would happen if, instead of quitting, you simply decided to keep going? What if, instead of expecting fast results, you committed to being the person who refuses to stop? Because the truth is, success isn't about being the best. It's about being the one who never quits. Chapter 3. Breaking the Chains of Inconsistency: How to Win the Inner War. Let's talk about something uncomfortable, the real reason you keep quitting. If you're like most people, you've spent years wondering why you can't stick to things. You tell yourself you're going to finally commit, finally get serious. Finally be disciplined. And you do, for a while. But then something happens. You hit resistance, you get tired, life gets in the way. And just like that, the cycle repeats itself. You're back where you started, frustrated, disappointed, and feeling like maybe you're just not capable of being consistent. But here's the truth. Your problem isn't that you're incapable. It's that you've never trained yourself to win the inner war against inconsistency. And make no mistake, that's exactly what this is. A war. Not against external obstacles, but against your own patterns of self-sabotage. Because inconsistency isn't a random flaw. It's a habit. It's a set of behaviors that have been reinforced in your brain for years. And just like any habit, it can be broken, but only if you understand what's really happening beneath the surface. So, let's break it down. Why do people struggle with consistency? Most assume it's about motivation. They think, if I could just stay motivated, I'd follow through. But that's not the issue. The issue is that your brain is wired for comfort and immediate gratification. It doesn't care about your long-term success. It doesn't care about your dreams, your goals, or the promises you've made to yourself. It only cares about what feels good right now. That's why, when the excitement of starting something new fades, your brain starts looking for the easiest way out. Maybe you've experienced this before. You start working on a goal, and at first, it feels amazing. You're inspired, energized, and full of hope. But then, after a few weeks, that initial excitement wears off. Suddenly, going to the gym feels like a chore. Sitting down to write feels like a struggle. You don't feel as excited, and your brain starts whispering, maybe I'll just take a break today. And that's where the war is won or lost. See, the biggest mistake people make is believing that how they feel should determine what they do. But successful people, they understand a simple truth. Feelings are unreliable. They know that if they only acted when they felt like it, they'd never get anywhere. So instead, they develop a different relationship with their emotions. They stop negotiating with themselves. They stop waiting for the right mood. They stop allowing temporary discomfort to dictate their long-term success. And that's what you need to do. Because if you keep letting your feelings decide your actions, you will always be inconsistent. You will always stop when things get uncomfortable. You will always give up when motivation fades. And if that's how you live, you'll never reach your full potential. So, how do you break the pattern? How do you train yourself to be consistent no matter what? You start by rewiring your identity. Let's go deeper into that. Right now, you probably think of consistency as an action, something you do. But that's the wrong way to look at it. Consistency isn't just an action, it's an identity. It's who you are. And until you start seeing yourself as someone who is consistent, you will always struggle to maintain it. Think about it like this. A smoker trying to quit has two options. The first option is to say, I'm trying to quit smoking. The second option is to say, I don't smoke. Do you see the difference? The first person still identifies as a smoker. The second person has shifted their identity. And because of that, their actions follow. Now, apply this to your own life. Instead of saying, I'm trying to be more consistent, say, I am consistent. Instead of saying, I want to work out more, say, I don't skip workouts. Instead of saying, I need to be more disciplined, say, I always follow through. The more you reinforce this new identity, the more your actions will naturally align with it. But here's the key. You can't just think it. You have to prove it to yourself through action. And this is where most people fail. They try to change their identity before they've built the habits to support it. But identity isn't built through thoughts. It's built through evidence. So, how do you build that evidence? You start small. You make consistency so easy that you can't fail. If your goal is to work out consistently, don't start with an hour at the gym. Start with 5 minutes. If your goal is to write every day, Don't aim for 2,000 words. Start with 50. The point isn't to do something massive. It's to prove to yourself over and over that you are the type of person who follows through. And here's the magic. Once you start building that identity, consistency becomes automatic. You no longer have to force yourself to show up. You just do, because that's who you are. But let's talk about the real challenge. What happens when life gets in the way? What happens when you're tired, busy, overwhelmed? This is where most people fall apart. They think consistency means never missing a day. But that's not true. Consistency doesn't mean being perfect. It means never quitting. It means that when life knocks you off track, you get back up immediately. See, most people don't fail because they miss one day. They fail because they let one missed day turn into a missed week, then a missed month, then a complete loss of momentum. They tell themselves, "I'll start again next Monday." But successful people? They don't wait. They don't let one bad day spiral into a bad week. They course correct immediately. They understand that success isn't about never falling. It's about how fast you get back up. So, ask yourself, how do you respond when you get off track? Do you let it derail you? Or do you bounce back quickly? Because that single decision, the decision to either give up or get back up, is what determines whether you succeed or stay stuck. Here's the bottom line. You are not inconsistent. You have just practiced inconsistency for so long that it feels normal. But starting today, you're going to practice something different. You're going to practice being the type of person who shows up no matter what. You're going to stop waiting for motivation and start relying on systems. You're going to shift your identity from someone who tries to be consistent to someone who is consistent. And if you do this, if you commit to rewiring your mindset, your habits, and your identity, your life will change. Not overnight, not in a few weeks, but slowly, steadily, unshakably. Because in the end, success isn't for the most talented. It's for the most relentless. And now, you are one of them. Chapter 4. The invisible forces that control your consistency without you even realizing it. What if I told you that your failure to stay consistent has nothing to do with willpower? That your lack of follow-through isn't because you're lazy, undisciplined, or unmotivated? That the reason you keep stopping, starting, and falling into the same frustrating patterns over and over again isn't even your fault? Sounds unbelievable, right? But here's the truth that most people never realize. You don't control your habits. Your environment does. That's right. The reason you struggle with consistency isn't because you don't have enough self-discipline. It's because your surroundings, your routines, and the invisible forces around you are constantly shaping your behavior without you even noticing. You think you're making choices, but in reality, your brain is just reacting to the cues and triggers embedded in your daily life. And if those cues are working against you, no amount of motivation can save you. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to eat junk food when it's right in front of you? How mindlessly you reach for your phone when you're supposed to be working? How effortless it feels to waste hours scrolling on social media? Yet, it feels impossible to sit down and focus on something productive? That's not a lack of discipline. That's your environment controlling you. Now, here's where most people go wrong. When they struggle with consistency, they blame themselves. They tell themselves they need to try harder, push through, or be more disciplined. But that approach doesn't work. Why? Because it goes against human nature. Your brain is wired to take the path of least resistance. If something is easy, you'll do it. If something is hard, you'll avoid it. And if your environment is making the wrong things easy and the right things difficult, you'll lose every single time. But here's the good news. You can flip the script. Instead of trying to force yourself to be disciplined, you can design your environment in a way that makes consistency effortless. Instead of relying on willpower, You can set up systems that make success automatic. So, let's break this down step by step, because if you truly want to master consistency, you must learn how to control your environment before it controls you. Step 1. Make the right actions easy. Most people assume that success comes from working harder, but the truth is, success comes from removing friction. If something is hard to do, you're far less likely to do it. If something is easy, it becomes second nature, and that's exactly why you need to optimize your environment for consistency. Let's say you want to work out consistently, but you struggle to follow through. Instead of trying to be more motivated, ask yourself, how can I make this as easy as possible? Lay out your workout clothes the night before. If your gym clothes are right in front of you when you wake up, you eliminate one step of resistance. Sleep in your gym clothes. It sounds extreme, but it removes another excuse from your brain. Join a gym that's close to home. If your gym is 30 minutes away, chances are you'll skip it. But if it's 5 minutes away, you're much more likely to go. Have a backup plan. If you can't make it to the gym, have a home workout routine ready to go. That way, you never have an excuse to skip. Now imagine applying this concept to every area of your life. If you want to read more, put books in places where you'll see them. If you want to eat healthier, keep junk food out of sight and place healthy snacks within easy reach. If you want to spend less time on your phone, put it in another room when you're working. The point is simple. Remove friction from the things you want to do and add friction to the things you want to avoid. Step 2. Automate your good habits. Let's be honest. Relying on motivation is a losing strategy. You won't always feel motivated. You won't always have the energy to make the right choice. That's why the real key to consistency is automation. The more you can systematize your habits, the less effort it takes to stay on track. Here's how you do it. Use habit stacking. Attach new habits to things you already do. For example, if you want to journal daily, do it right after brushing your teeth. If you want to meditate, do it right after making your morning coffee. By linking habits together, you create an automatic routine that requires no extra thought. Set reminders that force you to act. Put sticky notes in visible places. Set alarms on your phone with personalized messages. The more reminders you have, the harder it becomes to forget your habits. Use accountability systems. If you struggle with follow-through, create external pressure. Find a workout partner, hire a coach, or publicly commit to your goals. When you know someone is watching, you're far less likely to quit. The goal is to make consistency feel automatic. The less you have to think about it, the easier it becomes to stick with it long term. Step 3. Identify and eliminate triggers that break your momentum. If you've ever tried to stay consistent, but kept falling back into old patterns, chances are there's a trigger pulling you off track. Maybe it's a certain time of day when you get distracted. Maybe it's a specific person who influences you negatively. Maybe it's a particular environment that tempts you into bad habits. Whatever it is, you need to identify it and eliminate it. Start by asking yourself, when do I usually fall off track? Is it after work? On weekends? When I'm stressed? What situations trigger inconsistency? Are there specific places, people, or emotions that make it harder to stay on track? How can I remove or replace those triggers? If scrolling on your phone kills your productivity, put your phone in another room. If junk food derails your diet, don't keep it in the house. If certain people influence you negatively, limit your exposure to them. You can't expect to stay consistent if you're constantly surrounded by things that pull you off track. Success isn't just about what you do, it's about what you remove. The bottom line, you don't need more willpower. You need better systems. At the end of the day, the most successful people aren't the ones with the most discipline. They're the ones with the best systems. They don't rely on motivation. They don't force themselves to make hard choices every day. They create environments that make consistency the default. So, take a look at your own life. Where are you making things harder than they need to be? What changes can you make today to set yourself up for effortless consistency? Because once you master this, once you create an environment that supports your habits instead of sabotaging them, staying consistent won't just be something you try to do. It will be who you are. Chapter 5. How to stop breaking promises to yourself, even when no one is watching. Have you ever wondered why it's so easy to keep promises to others, but so difficult to keep them to yourself? Why you'll go out of your way to avoid letting down a friend, a boss, or a family member. But when it comes to your own goals, you break your word time and time again. Maybe you tell yourself you'll wake up early, hit the gym, work on that project, or stay committed to a new habit. But the moment no one is watching, you let yourself off the hook. You negotiate, you justify, you push it to tomorrow, a tomorrow that never really comes. And then what happens? Guilt, frustration, that sinking feeling that maybe you just aren't the kind of person who follows through. But let me tell you something, you're not the problem. Your programming is. You've unknowingly trained your mind to accept inconsistency. And until you rewire that programming, no amount of motivation, goal setting, or external accountability will save you. So, let's break it down. Let's talk about the psychological reason why you keep breaking promises to yourself, why it's slowly destroying your self-trust, and, most importantly, how to fix it permanently. Because here's the thing, if you don't start treating your commitments to yourself with the same seriousness that you treat your commitments to others, you will never build real consistency. Step 1. Rebuild your identity. Through small wins, most people fail at consistency because they aim too high, too fast. They set massive goals expecting to overhaul their entire life overnight. But when they inevitably fall short, they take it as proof that they're incapable. And with each failure, their self-trust erodes. They become someone who doesn't believe their own words because deep down, they know they don't follow through. But here's the truth. Trust isn't built through big actions. It's built through small, repeated wins. If you want to start believing in yourself again, you don't need to do something dramatic. You just need to start keeping your smallest promises. So, let's make this practical. Instead of telling yourself, I'll wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym for an hour every day, start with something ridiculously small. Say, I will wake up 5 minutes earlier. Instead of committing to writing 1,000 words a day, start with one sentence. Instead of trying to meditate for 30 minutes, start with one deep breath. The point isn't the size of the action. It's the act of following through. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you rebuild self-trust. And something magical happens when you do this. Your brain starts associating your words with action. You no longer say things and immediately doubt whether you'll actually do them. Instead, you become the kind of person who follows through. You start small, and over time, your identity shifts. You go from someone who wants to be consistent to someone who is consistent. Step 2. Stop negotiating with yourself. Here's a brutal truth. Every time you make an excuse, every time you justify skipping something, every time you let yourself off the hook, you are practicing inconsistency. You are reinforcing the habit of not following through. And the worst part? The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Think about it. The first time you skip a workout, it feels wrong. You hesitate, you feel a little guilty. But the second time, it's easier. The third time, even easier. Before you know it, skipping workouts becomes more natural than doing them. That's how inconsistency is built. Not through one big failure, but through tiny negotiations that seem harmless in the moment, but compound over time. The most successful people in the world don't have superhuman willpower. They don't rely on motivation. They've just trained themselves to stop negotiating. When they say they're going to do something, it's non-negotiable. There is no debate. There is no just this once. They remove the option to quit, and that's exactly what you need to do. So, here's a mindset shift that will change everything. If you said you were going to do something, it's already decided. You don't think about it. You don't analyze it. You don't check how you feel. You just do it. Because consistency isn't about feelings. It's about decisions. The moment you commit to something, eliminate the option to back out. And watch how quickly your self-trust grows. Step 3. Make your standards higher than your excuses. If you want to be consistent, you need to raise your standards. Because right now, your standards are too low. You've made it acceptable to break promises to yourself. You've allowed inconsistency to be part of your identity. But that ends today. Imagine someone you deeply respect, someone who is known for their relentless consistency. Maybe it's an athlete, an entrepreneur, or a mentor. Now ask yourself, would this person accept the excuses I'm making right now? Would they let themselves off the hook just because they were tired or busy or not in the mood? Probably not, because high achievers don't let temporary feelings dictate their long-term results. They don't lower their standards to match their circumstances. Instead, they elevate their actions to meet their standards. And you need to do the same. Starting today, make a rule for yourself. I do what I say I will do, no matter what. Hold yourself to the same level of commitment that you hold for others. If you wouldn't cancel a meeting with your boss, don't cancel a meeting with yourself. If you wouldn't break a promise to a friend, don't break a promise to yourself. You are just as important as anyone else. Treat yourself that way. The bottom line? If you can't trust yourself, you'll never be consistent. At the core of consistency is one simple truth. You must become someone who trusts their own word. If you don't trust yourself, you'll never follow through. You'll always second guess, procrastinate, and hesitate. But the moment you start treating your commitments to yourself with the same seriousness as your commitments to others, everything changes. Because the real reason most people struggle with consistency isn't that they're undisciplined. It's that they don't believe in themselves. They've broken so many promises, failed so many times that deep down, they don't trust their own intentions anymore. But here's the good news. Self-trust can be rebuilt, and it starts today. So from this moment forward, make a commitment. A real commitment. No more broken promises. No more negotiations. No more excuses. You are now someone who does what they say they will do. Not because it's easy, not because you feel like it, but because that's who you are. Chapter 6. The Silent Killer of Consistency and How to Defeat It Before It Destroys You. You've probably had this experience before. You set a goal. You start strong. You follow through for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But then, almost out of nowhere, something shifts. You slow down. You start making little excuses. You miss one day, then another, and before you know it, you're right back where you started. At first, you blame external factors. I got too busy. Life got in the way. I just wasn't feeling it. But deep down, if you're honest with yourself, you know that's not the real reason. The real reason, the one that's harder to admit, is that you sabotaged yourself. And if you don't figure out why, it will keep happening, over and over again. No matter how many times you start over, no matter how determined you feel in the beginning, you'll always find a way to stop yourself before you get too far. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, but because there's a hidden force inside you, one that's been quietly pulling the strings without you even realizing it. So, let's expose it. Let's shine a light on the invisible enemy that's been keeping you stuck, breaking your momentum and preventing you from becoming the person you're meant to be. Because once you understand what's really been holding you back, you'll finally be free. Step 1. Understand why you fear your own success. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Why would you fear success? Why would you sabotage something you desperately want? But here's the harsh reality. Most people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of what happens if they actually succeed. Think about it. If you become truly consistent, if you stop making excuses, follow through on everything you start, and finally reach your full potential, your entire life will change. You'll no longer have the comfort of blaming external circumstances. You'll no longer have the safety net of mediocrity. You'll no longer be able to hide behind the identity of someone who wants success, but never actually gets it. And that is terrifying, because consistency forces you to step into a new version of yourself, a version that has no excuses left, a version that has to take full responsibility, a version that can no longer rely on the same patterns that have kept you comfortable for years. So, without realizing it, you sabotage yourself. Not because you want to fail, but because success demands change, and change is uncomfortable. Maybe you've seen this in your own life. You start making progress, and suddenly, self-doubt creeps in. You tell yourself, "I don't deserve this." You worry about what people will think if you actually achieve your goal. You start focusing on all the reasons why it won't last, or why you're not ready. And before you know it, you've talked yourself out of it. But here's the truth. You are ready. You do deserve it. And you need to stop letting fear dictate your actions. Because the only thing standing between you and consistency is your willingness to let go of who you used to be. Step 2. Break free from the comfort of inconsistency. Inconsistency isn't just a bad habit, it's an addiction. A deeply ingrained pattern that, on some level, brings you comfort. Think about it. Every time you fall back into inconsistency, you get something out of it. Maybe it's the relief of avoiding discomfort. Maybe it's the familiarity of old routines. Maybe it's the validation of telling yourself, "See? I knew I couldn't do it." Whatever it is, your brain craves it. And unless you become aware of it, you will keep sabotaging yourself without even realizing it. The problem is, most people don't see their inconsistency as a choice. They see it as something that happens to them. But here's what you need to understand. Every time you break your momentum, you are making a decision to stay comfortable, a decision to avoid growth, a decision to remain the same. And the only way to break free, you have to make inconsistency painful. Right now, inconsistency feels comfortable, and consistency feels like work. You need to flip that. You need to rewire your brain so that inconsistency feels unbearable, so that every time you consider breaking your momentum, your mind screams, "No, this is not who we are anymore." Here's how you do it. Public accountability. If you struggle to hold yourself accountable, make your commitments public. Tell people about your goals. Announce your intentions. The more eyes on you, the harder it becomes to back out. Harsh consequences. If inconsistency has no cost, you'll keep falling into it. So, create consequences. Make a bet with a friend. Set up a system where, if you break your commitment, you lose money, time, or something valuable. Daily reminders of why this matters. Every day, remind yourself of the price you'll pay if you stay inconsistent. Write it down. Look at it every morning. Make it impossible to ignore. The goal is simple. Make consistency the only acceptable option. And once you do that, self-sabotage loses its power over you. Step 3. Become obsessed with finishing what you start. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with consistency? They are addicted to starting, but terrified of finishing. Starting something new feels exciting. It gives you a rush, a fresh start, a feeling of possibility. But finishing? Finishing forces you to confront reality. It forces you to see if you're actually capable of following through. And if you've spent years reinforcing the identity of someone who never finishes, then deep down, you fear what will happen if you actually cross the finish line. So, you start things and never complete them. You jump from project to project, habit to habit, goal to goal. You keep chasing the thrill of starting over instead of doing the real work of seeing something through. But here's the hard truth. Your life will never change until you finish what you start, until you prove to yourself that you are someone who follows through, until you shift your addiction from new beginnings to final results. Starting today, adopt one simple rule. No more unfinished commitments. No more half-finished books. No more abandoned workouts. No more, I'll try again next time. If you start something, you finish it. Period. Because once you become someone who finishes, consistency is no longer something you try to do. It's something you are. The bottom line? You are either your greatest ally or your own worst enemy. Self-sabotage is the silent killer of consistency. It disguises itself as procrastination, self-doubt, and perfectionism. It convinces you that you're not ready, that you're too busy, that it's not the right time. But none of that is real. The only thing standing between you and unstoppable consistency is the willingness to stop fighting yourself. So, ask yourself, are you ready to stop getting in your own way? Are you ready to stop running in circles? Are you ready to stop fearing success and finally claim it? Because if you are, your future self is waiting. Chapter 7. How to show up every day, even when you don't feel like it. You already know what needs to be done. You've set the goal. You've made the plan. You've told yourself 100 times that this time will be different. And yet, when the moment comes to actually do the work, to take the action that moves you forward, you hesitate. You stall. You overthink. You tell yourself, I'll do it later. But you don't. You never do. Because later is just another word for never. This is the silent battle that determines everything. Not the moments of motivation, not the days when you feel inspired, but the small, quiet choices you make when no one is watching. Do you follow through? Or do you find an excuse? This is where most people lose. Not because they don't have the ability, not because they don't have the knowledge, but because they let their emotions dictate their actions. They only show up when they feel like it. They only push forward when they're in the mood. And since motivation is fleeting, since feelings are unreliable, they stay stuck in a cycle of inconsistency. But here's the brutal truth. If you only take action when you feel like it, you will never be consistent. Because discipline is not about feelings. It's about decisions. It's about showing up, doing the work, and following through, regardless of how you feel in the moment. So, how do you do it? How do you override the voice in your head that says, "Not today"? How do you break free from the emotional resistance that keeps you stuck? How do you transform yourself into the kind of person who shows up every single day no matter what? It starts with mastering the psychology of action. And once you do, inconsistency will no longer be an option. Step 1. Stop waiting for motivation. It's a lie. Motivation is a drug. It feels amazing when you have it. It gives you energy, excitement, and the illusion that you're unstoppable. But like any drug, it fades. And the problem is, most people are addicted to it. They rely on it. They chase it. They wait for that perfect moment when they feel ready. But readiness never comes. The most successful, consistent people in the world, they don't rely on motivation. They understand that waiting to feel inspired is the fastest way to stay stuck. So, they stop expecting it. They stop needing it. And instead, they build a system where action happens no matter what. Think about it. If an elite athlete only trained when they felt like it, they'd never be great. If a top performer only worked when they were in the mood, they'd never reach their potential. The reason they succeed isn't because they're always motivated. It's because they've trained themselves to take action without needing to be. So, what does that mean for you? It means you need to stop waiting for the feeling and start focusing on the action. Motivation is irrelevant. The question is not, do I feel like doing this? The question is, what needs to be done? And once you shift your mindset from emotional decision-making to action-based thinking, your ability to be consistent will skyrocket. Step 2. Kill the 5-second hesitation. Before it kills your momentum. Every time you hesitate, you lose. Every time you allow yourself even a few seconds of internal debate, you give your brain the chance to talk you out of taking action. And if you've spent years reinforcing the habit of hesitation, your brain will always find a way to convince you to delay, to postpone, to avoid. The problem isn't that you're incapable, it's that you've trained yourself to pause at the wrong moments. Think about it. You don't hesitate when checking your phone. You don't hesitate when grabbing a snack. You don't hesitate when scrolling through social media. These actions happen instantly because your brain has been conditioned to associate them with immediate reward. But when it comes to things that require effort, things that require discipline, you hesitate. And that hesitation is where consistency dies. So, here's the solution. Eliminate the gap between thought and action. The moment you decide to do something, you move. No overthinking, no waiting, no second guessing. You feel the resistance, but you take action anyway. Use the 5-second rule. The second you feel hesitation creeping in, count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Stand up, move, start. Do something, anything, that signals to your brain, we're doing this now. And once you're in motion, everything becomes easier. Because the hardest part isn't the work itself, it's just starting. Step 3. Lower the barrier to action, so it's impossible to fail. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with consistency? They make things too difficult in the beginning. They try to go from 0 to 100 overnight. They set massive expectations for themselves, expectations that feel overwhelming the moment motivation fades. And what happens when something feels overwhelming? You avoid it. You procrastinate. You tell yourself, I'll do it later. And later turns into never. But here's what successful, consistent people do differently. They make action so small, so easy, that it's impossible to skip. If you want to become a daily runner, don't start with a 10-mile run. Start with putting on your running shoes. If you want to build a writing habit, don't aim for a full chapter. Aim for 1 sentence. If you want to work out consistently, don't commit to an hour. Commit to 5 minutes. Why? Because small actions build momentum. And once you're in motion, everything becomes easier. The hardest part is always starting. But once you start, you'll keep going. The secret to consistency isn't willpower. It isn't motivation. It's removing every possible excuse and making action inevitable. Once you master that, you'll become unstoppable. The bottom line, feelings are temporary, but your actions define you. Most people let their emotions control their actions. They let their mood dictate whether they show up. But here's the hard truth. Your feelings are irrelevant. Your actions are what matter. Because at the end of the day, you have a choice. You can be the person who only takes action when they feel like it. The person who stays stuck, waiting for motivation that never lasts. Or you can be the person who takes action no matter what. The person who builds consistency, discipline, and unstoppable momentum. So, which one will you be? Because if you're ready, if you're truly ready to take control of your habits, your discipline, and your future, then starting today, you make one commitment. You show up every day, no matter what. And once you do that, Consistency is no longer something you chase. It's who you are. Chapter 8: The Hidden War in Your Mind and How to Win It. Every single day, have you ever noticed how your brain fights you the hardest when you're about to do something that will actually change your life? You know exactly what needs to be done, you understand the benefits, and yet, when it's time to take action, your mind bombards you with reasons to delay. I'm too tired today. I'll start tomorrow. I need to plan this out better before I begin. Maybe next week will be easier. And just like that, another day slips through your fingers. You tell yourself you'll make up for it later, but deep down, you know the truth. This isn't the first time, and it won't be the last unless you do something drastic. You see, there's a silent war happening inside you, a war between the part of you that wants to grow, succeed, and push forward, and the part of you that wants to stay exactly where you are. This battle is waged every single day in every tiny decision you make. Do you get up and go to the gym, or do you hit snooze? Do you open your laptop and start working on your goals, or do you scroll through social media? Do you push yourself to take action, or do you let hesitation rob you of your momentum? Most people lose this battle. Not because they're incapable, not because they don't want it badly enough, but because they never learned how to override their emotions and take action no matter what. They believe they have to feel motivated to move. They believe their excuses, and worst of all, they let their temporary feelings dictate their long-term success. But here's the reality that most people will never accept. If you only take action when you feel like it, you will never be consistent. And if you are not consistent, you will never achieve anything extraordinary. So, how do you win this war? How do you stop letting hesitation, procrastination, and self-doubt sabotage your consistency? How do you turn yourself into the kind of person who shows up every single day no matter what? The answer lies in mastering the psychology of action. And once you do, inconsistency will no longer be an option. It will become impossible. Step 1. Motivation is the biggest lie you've ever been told. Here's the truth. The number one reason people struggle with consistency? They are waiting to feel motivated. They think that if they just read enough self-improvement books, watch enough inspiring videos, or hype themselves up enough, they will eventually feel ready to take massive action. But this is the biggest lie that's ever been sold. Motivation is a drug. It gives you a temporary high, a fleeting burst of excitement, a momentary illusion of progress. But, like any drug, it wears off. And when it does, you're left exactly where you started. Except now, you feel even worse because you thought motivation was the missing ingredient. You thought that once you had enough of it, everything would suddenly become easy. But that's not how this works. The people who are truly consistent, the ones who achieve extraordinary results, do not rely on motivation. They do not wait until they feel like it. Instead, they build systems and habits that make action automatic, so that whether they're tired, uninspired, or completely unmotivated, they still show up. If you want to become one of those people, you need to burn this into your mind. Motivation is irrelevant. Discipline is everything. And discipline isn't about how you feel. It's about what you do. It's about training yourself to take action regardless of your emotions. Because the truth is, the most successful people in the world are not motivated every day, but they have one thing that keeps them moving forward. They don't negotiate with themselves. Step 2. The 5-second rule: why hesitation is destroying your momentum. Every time you hesitate, you give your brain the opportunity to sabotage you. The moment you start thinking, "Should I do this now?" your mind will flood you with reasons to wait. It will tell you you're too tired, too busy, too unprepared. And once that doubt creeps in, you lose. Hesitation is the death of consistency. The more time you give yourself to debate an action, the less likely you are to do it. And the problem is, Most people don't even realize they're doing this. They assume they're just thinking it through or waiting for the right moment. But in reality, they are reinforcing a habit of inaction. So, what's the solution? You need to eliminate hesitation before it eliminates your progress. The second you think about taking action, you move immediately. No waiting, no overthinking, no internal debate. The easiest way to do this? The 5-second rule. The moment you catch yourself hesitating, count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Move, start, do something, anything that breaks the cycle of inaction. Because once you're in motion, everything becomes easier. The hardest part isn't the work itself, it's overcoming that initial resistance. Step 3. Stop making it so hard. Lower the barrier to action. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with consistency: they set the bar too high in the beginning. They decide they're going to wake up at 5 a.m., work out for 2 hours, read 50 pages of a book, meal prep, meditate, and start a side hustle, all in one day. And by the time reality hits, they feel completely overwhelmed. And what happens when something feels overwhelming? You avoid it. You procrastinate. You tell yourself you'll start fresh next week, and suddenly, you're back to square one. But the most consistent people in the world don't rely on willpower or extreme effort. They rely on momentum. Instead of setting impossible expectations, they focus on making action so easy that it's impossible to skip. Want to build a workout habit? Don't start with an hour at the gym, start with 5 push-ups. Want to write a book? Don't commit to a full chapter, write 1 sentence. Want to become a daily reader? Start with 1 page. Because once you start, something magical happens. You keep going. Action leads to more action. Progress leads to more progress. The hardest part is always the beginning. But once you build momentum, you'll no longer have to force yourself. You'll just do it. The bottom line? Stop letting feelings control your actions. Most people let their emotions dictate their consistency. They take action when they feel like it and avoid action when they don't. But if you want to be truly unstoppable, you need to let go of this mindset forever. Your feelings are temporary. Your discipline is what defines you. So from this moment forward, you make a choice. You can be the person who only takes action when it's convenient. The person who stays stuck, waiting for motivation that never lasts. Or you can be the person who takes action no matter what. The person who builds momentum, discipline, and an unbreakable habit of showing up. And once you make that choice, once you commit to never negotiating with yourself again, you will become the kind of person who shows up every day, no matter what. And when you do, consistency is no longer something you chase. It's who you are. Chapter 9. The secret to becoming the person who never quits, even when everything tries to stop you. There are 2 types of people in the world: those who try to be consistent and those who are consistent. The difference between them is what separates high achievers from those who never make it past their first obstacle. It's not about talent, intelligence, or resources. It's about identity. Most people think consistency is something they have to force themselves into, an exhausting uphill battle where they constantly struggle against distractions, laziness, and self-doubt. But the people who succeed, they don't try to be consistent. They simply are. If you struggle with staying consistent, it's not because you're weak. It's because you're still identifying as the kind of person who has to force themselves to take action. You see consistency as something external, something separate from who you are. And that's why it feels like a fight. But the moment you shift your identity from someone who tries to be disciplined to someone who is disciplined by default, the entire game changes. Think about it. A smoker who is trying to quit says, "I'm trying to quit smoking." But a non-smoker simply says, "I don't smoke." The difference? One still identifies with the habit, while the other has completely detached from it. The same applies to consistency. If you constantly tell yourself, "I need to be more disciplined," you are reinforcing the idea that you're not already that person. But when you shift your identity to, "I am someone who shows up every day no matter what," your actions will naturally align with that belief. The secret to unstoppable consistency isn't about motivation, hacks, or willpower. It's about fully embodying the identity of someone who is consistent. And once you do, the struggle disappears, because it's no longer a question of effort. It's just who you are. Step 1. Why your brain sabotages you and how to reprogram it for consistency. Right now, your brain is working against you in ways you don't even realize. Every time you try to build a new habit, every time you attempt to be more disciplined, there is a subconscious resistance pulling you back to your old patterns. This isn't because you're lazy or undisciplined. It's because your brain is designed to keep you in familiar territory. The human mind is wired for efficiency. It doesn't care about your goals, your dreams, or the life you want to create. It only cares about one thing: survival. And from your brain's perspective, survival means sticking with what's familiar, even if what's familiar is destructive. This is why change feels so difficult. It's why your brain constantly tries to talk you out of new habits, why it invents excuses, why it makes you crave instant gratification instead of long-term success. But once you understand this, you can override it. The key is to reprogram your brain to associate consistency with safety and success. How? By making discipline feel as natural and effortless as the bad habits you're trying to replace. The more you show up, the more you prove to yourself, "This is who I am now." And the more you do that, the more your brain will accept it as the new normal. Here's the shift that changes everything. Instead of seeing consistency as something difficult, something you have to fight for, see it as the default state of who you are. If you can accept that brushing your teeth is non-negotiable, that showing up to work is non-negotiable, then why can't the same be true for your personal goals? The only difference is the identity you've attached to them. The moment you decide that taking action is simply part of your identity, not something you have to convince yourself to do, the internal struggle disappears. Step 2. How to eliminate the "I don't feel like it" excuse forever. Let's get one thing straight. Your feelings are not the problem. The fact that you let them control your actions is. Most people live in a state of emotional dependence. They wait to feel like working out before they go to the gym. They wait to feel like writing before they start their book. They wait for the right mood before they take action. And because feelings are unpredictable, they end up being inconsistent. But here's the truth. The most disciplined people in the world, they don't feel like it either. They don't wake up every morning excited to put in the work. They don't always have an overwhelming drive to take action. The only difference is that they have trained themselves to move forward regardless of their emotions. You have to break free from the illusion that action needs to be accompanied by a feeling. It doesn't. Action can happen completely independently of how you feel. You don't have to feel motivated to work hard. You don't have to feel inspired to be productive. You don't have to be in the right mood to be consistent. You just have to do it anyway. If you want to break free from inconsistency, you have to stop asking yourself, "Do I feel like doing this?" Because the answer will almost always be no. Instead, ask yourself, "What kind of person do I want to become?" And act accordingly. Because the truth is, every time you take action, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. And the more votes you cast, the more permanent that identity becomes. Step 3. The power of non-negotiable daily habits. If you want to be truly consistent, you need to remove the option to quit. Most people fail because they leave too much room for negotiation. They allow themselves to debate whether they should take action or not. But when something is non-negotiable, The decision is already made. There is no internal debate. There is no hesitation. You just do it, because that's what you do. Think about it. Do you debate whether or not to brush your teeth in the morning? Number. Do you argue with yourself about whether you should put on clothes before leaving the house? Of course not. These actions are automatic because they are ingrained as part of your identity. This is the level of commitment you need to apply to your goals. You don't think about whether or not you should take action. You just take action, period. How do you build this level of consistency? Start with small, daily, non-negotiable habits. Commit to showing up every single day, even if it's only for 5 minutes. Prove to yourself over and over again that you are someone who follows through. And once you build that reputation with yourself, quitting will no longer be an option. The bottom line, you are one decision away from changing everything. Right now, you have a choice. You can continue being the person who tries to be consistent, who struggles with self-discipline, who lets emotions dictate their actions. Or you can make the decision right now to become the kind of person who just does it, the kind of person who doesn't negotiate, who doesn't hesitate, who doesn't rely on motivation, the kind of person who is consistent by default, because that's just who they are. Once you make that decision, everything changes. Consistency is no longer something you chase. It becomes inevitable. Chapter 10. How to eliminate failure so you never have to try again. Let's be brutally honest. The reason you're inconsistent isn't that you're lazy, weak-willed, or incapable. It's because you're relying on willpower, and willpower is a terrible strategy for long-term success. Every time you tell yourself, I just need to try harder, you are setting yourself up for failure. Why? Because trying harder implies struggle. It implies that your success is dependent on constantly fighting your natural tendencies, battling distractions, and forcing yourself into action. And that's exactly why you burn out, quit, and find yourself repeating the same cycle over and over again. The truth is, the most consistent people in the world don't try. They don't rely on willpower, motivation, or sheer determination. Instead, they create systems that make success inevitable. They don't leave their consistency up to chance or their mood. They design their lives in a way where taking action becomes automatic. The reason you struggle isn't that you lack discipline. It's that you lack an environment, a structure, and a system that makes consistency effortless. And until you fix that, you will always struggle. The good news? Once you eliminate the need for willpower, consistency stops feeling like a battle. Instead of fighting to stay on track, you remove the possibility of failure altogether. And that's what we're going to do now, step by step. Step 1. Stop trusting yourself. Build a system instead. Most people make the mistake of believing they can trust themselves to stay consistent. They say things like, I'll wake up early tomorrow, or I'll start working out next week, believing that somehow their future self will be more disciplined than they are today. But here's the harsh reality. Your future self is just as undisciplined as your current self. If you don't have a system in place, you will fail. Successful people don't trust themselves to just do it. They set up systems that make doing it inevitable. They don't leave their goals up to chance, waiting for the right moment, the right mood, or the right burst of motivation. They build structures that make consistency automatic, so failure is never even an option. Think about it. If your phone is right next to you while you work, you will eventually pick it up and scroll. If junk food is in your kitchen, you will eventually eat it. If you rely on your mind to remember your habits, you will eventually forget. It's not about willpower. It's about systems. The people who win aren't stronger than you. They just don't leave room for failure. They remove obstacles, set up clear routines, and eliminate the need to think, decide, or resist. Your job is to stop trusting yourself to do the right thing, and instead, Create an environment where the right thing happens by default. This means eliminating friction. If you want to work out, lay out your gym clothes the night before. If you want to eat healthy, remove junk food from your house. If you want to write, set up your workspace so all you have to do is sit down and start. Automating decisions. Remove the need for willpower by setting non-negotiable schedules. If you decide when you'll work out, when you'll work, and when you'll take action in advance, you won't waste time debating whether you feel like it. Creating accountability. If you don't trust yourself to follow through, make it impossible to quit. Hire a coach, tell a friend, or publicly commit to your goal, so backing out is embarrassing. The less you rely on yourself, the more consistent you will become. Step 2. Create rules so you don't have to think every time you have to decide whether to take action. You are giving yourself an opportunity to fail. Decision-making is the enemy of consistency. The more decisions you have to make, the more exhausted your brain becomes, and the easier it is to justify skipping, procrastinating, or quitting altogether. That's why the most successful people create rules for themselves that eliminate the need to think. Take an Olympic athlete, for example. They don't wake up every morning and ask themselves, "Should I train today?" It's already decided. Training is simply what they do. There's no negotiation, no internal debate, no need for motivation. The same goes for top performers in business, fitness, and any field. They don't waste energy deciding whether or not to take action. They remove the choice entirely. You need to create non-negotiable rules for your habits, rules that make success inevitable. These rules should be simple. Example: I work out every day at 7 a.m. Clear. Example: I write 500 words every morning, no matter what. Non-negotiable. Example: I never check my phone before finishing my morning routine. The key here is to make these rules absolute. No exceptions, no loopholes, no room for just this once. If you follow them long enough, they become part of who you are. No longer something you have to force, but simply something you do. Step 3. Make it impossible to quit. The final step in eliminating inconsistency is making quitting impossible. Right now, you probably allow yourself to fail more than you realize. You skip workouts, miss deadlines, and break habits because there are no real consequences. And when there are no consequences, failure becomes easy. But what if quitting wasn't an option? What if the cost of inconsistency was so high that you simply had to follow through? This is what high performers do. They create external pressure, real stakes, and painful consequences so that staying consistent is the only logical choice. Here's how you can do the same. Make failure embarrassing. Announce your goal publicly, so quitting would make you look bad. Nobody wants to be seen as unreliable. Put money on the line. Studies show that people are far more consistent when they have something to lose. Bet money on your habit. If you don't follow through, you forfeit it. Tie success to something bigger. If your goal only affects you, it's easy to quit. But if your actions impact your family, friends, or team, you'll be far more likely to stay consistent. Most people quit because the consequences of quitting are too small. The moment you raise the stakes, inconsistency disappears. The bottom line? Stop hoping. Start designing. The reason most people fail at consistency is simple. They hope things will change instead of designing a system that forces change. They rely on motivation, willpower, and sheer effort instead of eliminating friction, automating decisions, and creating rules that make success inevitable. But now, you know better. You know that consistency isn't about trying harder. It's about removing the need to try at all. If you apply these steps, if you eliminate friction, build non-negotiable rules, and make quitting impossible, you will never struggle with inconsistency again. Because at that point, success won't be a choice. It will be the only option. Chapter 11. The Final Barrier. How to Become the Person Who Never Quits. Imagine this. You wake up every morning, and before your feet even hit the floor, you already know exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. You don't hesitate. You don't negotiate. You don't scroll your phone for an extra 5 minutes, waiting for motivation to strike. You just get up and take action automatically, because that's just who you are. Now compare that to your current reality. How often do you talk yourself out of doing the things you know you should do? How many times have you let yourself off the hook, made excuses, or convinced yourself that today isn't the right day to start? If you're like most people, the gap between what you know you should do and what you actually do is massive. And it's not because you're lazy, weak, or incapable. It's because you haven't yet become the person for whom action is automatic. Consistency isn't just about habits, discipline, or even systems. Those are powerful tools. But at the core of it all, true consistency is about identity. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with consistency, you will always struggle. If you view yourself as someone who is easily distracted, you will always be distracted. If you believe that you're not a disciplined person, you will always find ways to avoid discipline. The way you see yourself dictates your actions, and until you rewire your self-identity, you will always fall back into the same patterns. The truth is, the people who are effortlessly consistent aren't that way because they have superhuman willpower. They are that way because they don't see themselves as people who struggle with inconsistency in the first place. The final step to mastering consistency isn't just about what you do. It's about who you are. If you don't fundamentally shift your self-perception, no system, no habit, and no strategy will ever be enough. You must become the type of person who sees consistency not as something you have to work for, but as something that is simply a part of you. Step 1. Rewrite your internal story. Who are you really? Right now, you have an internal story about yourself that dictates how you act. Whether you realize it or not, you have certain beliefs about what you're capable of, how disciplined you are, and what kind of person you have the potential to become. And these beliefs, these hidden assumptions, are shaping every action you take. If, deep down, you believe that you're someone who always procrastinates, you will always find a way to procrastinate. If you believe that you're someone who starts things but never finishes, your brain will go out of its way to prove that belief true. The subconscious mind does not like inconsistency between identity and action, so it will always push you to act in alignment with who you believe yourself to be. Now, if you want to be consistent, you must change your self-image first. Instead of thinking, "I wish I were more disciplined," you must start seeing yourself as the kind of person who is disciplined. Instead of thinking, "I always struggle with sticking to habits," you must rewrite that belief into something more powerful. "I am the kind of person who follows through, no matter what." The key here is to reprogram your brain at an identity level, not just a behavioral level. You don't just try to be consistent. You become someone for whom consistency is natural. So, how do you do this? You start by speaking and acting as if the identity you want is already yours. You don't wait until you feel like you're consistent. You don't wait until you deserve to call yourself disciplined. You start acting like the person you want to become right now, before you feel ready, before you feel qualified. Every action you take is a vote for the person you are becoming. If you want to be someone who works out every day, then you work out, even if it's only for 5 minutes. If you want to be someone who never quits, then you do one thing right now that proves to yourself that you never quit. Over time, these small actions compound into an unshakable self-image. You become the person you prove yourself to be. Step 2. Burn the boats. Make failure impossible. Most people fail at consistency because deep down, they always leave themselves an escape route. They say they're going to stick to something, but they don't fully commit. They give themselves a backup plan, an excuse, or a way out. And the moment things get difficult, they take that way out. They tell themselves, I'll start again next week, or it's okay if I skip just this once, and before they know it, they're right back where they started. If you truly want to be consistent, you must remove failure as an option. There should be no plan B, no escape hatch, no backup strategy. You must burn the boats. In history, there are countless stories of armies that, upon arriving at enemy shores, burned their own ships to make retreat impossible. This meant they had only two choices: win or die trying. And because there was no way out, they fought with everything they had, and they won. You must take the same approach with your consistency. If you leave yourself room to quit, you will quit. If you give yourself a way out, you will take it. But if you commit fully, if you remove failure as an option, you will find a way to succeed no matter what. This means making it more painful to quit than it is to continue. It means publicly committing, setting up real consequences, and putting yourself in a position where stopping would be far worse than pushing through. Step 3. Lock in your new identity. Become unstoppable. The final step to becoming someone who is effortlessly consistent is to prove your new identity to yourself over and over again until it becomes undeniable. It's one thing to say, I am disciplined. It's another to act disciplined every single day until there is no doubt in your mind that it is simply who you are. This means taking one small action every day that reinforces your new identity. Even if it's just a tiny step, every time you follow through, you are wiring your brain for consistency. You are strengthening the neural pathways that say, I am the kind of person who does what I say I'm going to do. And over time, as you continue proving this to yourself, your old self-image, the one that struggled with inconsistency, will fade away. It won't happen overnight. At first, your brain will resist. It will try to pull you back into old patterns. But every time you push through, every time you take action despite discomfort, you are rewriting your identity at a fundamental level. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll wake up and notice that you no longer have to try to be consistent. You just are. You don't have to wait to become the person you want to be. You don't have to wait until you feel ready, until you feel motivated, until some perfect moment arrives. The new you starts the moment you decide. Right now, in this moment, you can choose to stop identifying as someone who struggles with consistency and start acting like someone who is relentlessly disciplined. No more waiting, no more hesitation, no more giving yourself permission to quit. From this point forward, consistency is not just a habit you build, it is who you are.